Hello there, it's Jay here from Jay's Vintage Junk, and if you probably haven't guessed already, we're back on with the Sony ICF-PRO80 radio receiver. And if you remember in the past video, we finally finished off basically doing the recap work on the main actual radio itself. Really what we've got left to do here is sort some of the corrosion issues out, and now these aren't due to leaking electrolytics or anything like that. This is battery leakage problems. And when I was playing with the radio, even though I could get the radio to work okay, it was very intermittent. You'd move it about, you'd move the battery a tiny little bit, it'd go off, you'd pull the battery out, put the battery back in, it'd work again. And what it's really down to, if we're looking here, is we've got some rather nasty corrosion on that battery contact in there. And it's not just in there, the corrosion is actually spread onto that PCB, and it's done a fair bit of damage. So what I thought we'd do in this video is we'll get this board out, and we'll see what we can do about sorting that out, and then we can actually finally put this radio back together, and the poor chap it belongs to can have his radio back. So let's get started. First thing we're going to have to do is we'll take this board out. Let me get you zoomed in a little bit so you can see a bit better what we're doing here. Move that out of the way. So first job, let's get this board out so we can really assess how bad that corrosion damage is. A suitable screwdriver to get these out. That's better. That's one screw. Two screws. And we can lift. I think you can see already quite how bad this is. So let's lift that board out. Some tape holding that down, we can get the tape off. There we go. Let's get that out of there. You can always replace that piece of tape when it goes back together. Right, yeah, that's pretty nasty. Fortunately, there's not a huge amount to this. It really is just a case of a couple of contacts and a little board down there. What we'll do, I don't even think we'll have to take this completely apart to actually do the work we need to do on this. What we're going to have to do is take that contact off because it's in a really bad condition, clean it, get all this corrosion off it, tin it up. We need to have a look at the power jack there because that's also suffered some corrosion on the back there. We'll do that, and then we can put this radio all back together, and hopefully we will have a working, functioning radio. So, right, it's actually a negative connection. And what I'm actually wondering whether I can do is that centre connection there. I think is only ever used if you've got you're charging a battery pack in the radio. So what I might do is see whether I can swap between the really badly damaged one there, which is what we need for a battery pack, and the centre one there, and we'll clean that one up and put it in the centre, and that should actually give us two really nice contacts for when it's using a battery pack. I mean, I don't know whether the chap actually intends using rechargeables in this and charging it in the radio. It should still work, but I'd rather have a good contact for the batteries and that be the poorer contacts. He could always pull them out and just put them in a charger, in a plug-in charger, if he wants to use rechargeables with it. I mean, he's got Pro cells in there at the moment, and to be honest, providing you take them out when they're not in use and when they're discharged, these are fine. I'd never leave these in a radio just long term because they can leak, and this is the result of of them leaking basically. So let's just see if we can desolder these connections here. I wonder if I should take that board off just so I can, in fact, yeah, because I don't want to risk melting any of the back of the case, so we will actually take this out completely. It's only a couple more screws. At least we will if we can get that screw out. seems to be something in the... There we go. There's something in the centre of that screw that's stopping us turning it. I think it's like a conformal coating or something that's been put all over this. I don't know, it actually looks like there's a piece in the middle of the screw there that's stopping me actually getting the screw out. I wonder if I can get it with these tweezers. Ah, that's it. It was a piece of solder. There we go. A little piece of solder that got stuck in the... And it does give us a chance to have a look on the bottom of that board, make sure the corrosion hasn't spread any further. We'll pop that screw out. And we'll pop them screws out up there. That's alright, okay. Then we can lift. There we are. We'll take that out completely and then we can put the plastic to one side while we work on this. And no, with no sign of corrosion on that backboard there, that looks absolutely fine. All the connections look decent. There doesn't seem to be any dry joints or anything like that. So I'm happy enough with that. I said our problems lie here. So let me get you zoomed in so you can see quite how bad this is. Oops. There we go. We can see, so there's rather a lot of corrosion on that. Someone's cleaned these up at some point and they've actually rubbed all the way through the plating on that one, so it's just down to the copper, which isn't good because that's basically what'll happen. It'll just tarnish up like that. So what we might have to do is tin that up a bit. In fact, they've rubbed really quite aggressively on them. You're best off using something like a fiberglass pen to clean stuff up like this, and it looks like someone's used perhaps sandpaper or something like that, or scratched away at it with a file, and they've actually scratched through the really thin plating on here. So we might have to just add a little bit of solder there just to give it like a plating so it doesn't tarnish too quickly. Let's see what we can do about getting these contacts out anyway. This one's going to be quite tricky because of the amount of corrosion there. I don't know if you can make it out. It's very, very dull compared with the contacts up here. In fact, if we touch that one, they melt straight away because... I wonder if I can just heat them both up and then drop that. Yeah. The problem with doing this is you do tend to burn your fingers. Like that. Unfortunately, the corrosion has it has affected the PCB as well, and it's not in a very happy state. It's coming up a bit on that side. I'm just going to try and heat the old solder up and just rock them out. The problem I'm going to have is that end one there, because that is not it's not flowing at all. See if we can find something and have a bit of a scrape. See if we can scrape the worst of the corrosion off. Get down to something that still resembles solder. You'll look there. That, even when you touch it with the iron, won't actually flow because it's basically gone like crystalline. This is one of the problems with battery corrosion on battery terminals. What we might have to do is flood that whole area with some fresh solder, just so we can get these to flow enough that we can actually get the old pieces off so we can work on them. I'll try scraping some of it away with a screwdriver, and we might be lucky, we might be able to get that to flow again. That contact there is actually, that flows nice and easy, but the one next to it has even been affected. So let's get some solder. And this is good old-fashioned leaded solder, so this should flow nice and easy. We'll try and get that in a position where we can, where you can actually see what I'm doing for one. Let's get the U down a little bit like that. And then we need to hold that. Try holding it with that. There we go. I don't know what's happened to my board with my... it's down there actually, that might work. Yeah, just bear with me a second, folks. This is going to be a pain to get out, but I think it'll be worth it. It's buried under all kinds of stuff. But this might definitely help us. It's something I made a while back. There we go. And this should allow us to hold the board while we actually work on it. Like I said, what we're going to try and do is drop those two the third contact there is actually fine, but we're going to try and drop those two contacts out, clean that one up, and then swap them over so the better contact is where the actual battery is going to connect. So we'll put some fresh solder on here. We'll see if we can just get that contact to come out. There we go. So that one's not actually in bad condition. That's what we're going to put to replace that one there. This one's in a pretty shocking state, but it can go there for, like I said, for the recharge, if you're going to be using rechargeable batteries. But that solder's really struggling to, it's just about going now. There we go, it's out. Right, next thing we're going to need is we're going to need some solder braid so we can actually clean the board up there. I'm going to put some solder braid in here. Yeah, and get a bit of solder braid. I haven't got my cheaper stuff, have I? Because it doesn't need to be really good stuff for what I'm doing here. Nope, I've only got the good stuff left, unfortunately. I need to buy some cheap stuff. And we'll put some... I always like to add, even though this is meant to be, you know, already have a flux in it, I always like to add my own flux. It just makes it work that little bit better. Like that. Let's see if we can wick all this away here. Now we can see what state the PCB's in. Okay. That's got a lot of it out. In fact, I might even have to use the desolder pump because there's that much on here. Let's try that. That's got rid of quite a chunk. Yeah. That's better. So we've got rid of the majority of it with the desolder pump, and then we can go in and just clean the excess off with the braid. There we go, that's not too bad. We need to do a little bit of clean up on there, but we can do that after we've let me get you down again so you can see what we're actually doing. Right, so we've got the two contacts. Like I said, that's by far the worst. That's the one that was actually causing all the issues. As you can see, it is pretty bad. That's the one that was in the centre. And we can see where someone has scraped at it and gone through the plate in there, but it's not too terrible. It's still nice and shiny. So that's the one that we're going to put back in that position, and we'll clean this one up and put it in the centre position. Now, I was saying about you shouldn't really scrape at them, but when they're in this kind of state, there isn't much you can do apart from scrape it. You get you so you can possibly. Oops, I just threw it across the floor. Never mind. Get you down a bit like that. There we are. So we can use my little vise here while we do this. I'll put that in there. That holds it while we have a look. See if we can scrape this clean. This is quite bad, but we'll save it. Now we could try neutralising this with some vinegar actually, because to be honest, I think this has been there for that long that it's beyond just neutralising with a bit of vinegar. I think it's going to be a case of scraping it off, tinning it up, and that should stop it getting any worse in the future. Let's see if I've got something better I can scrape it that with. I might even have to go and get a little bit of emery paper or something and rub it down with a little bit of emery paper. Quite a fine file here, I wonder if that'll work. Yeah. This is only a very fine file. It's a bit big for doing this, but it does work. We can get the majority of the really bad corrosion off with it. There we go. That's looking a little bit better now. But as you can see, even inside it. So we'll try holding that. What I'm trying to do is not put too much strain on the actual things. I've seen, in fact I've done it myself before, where I've been trying to clean something like this and just the flexing of it like that, and I've actually snapped the contact. So holding it in the vise like that just gives it a little bit of extra strength while we actually see if we can clean it up. And we'll probably have to go in with the flat of this screwdriver. Okay. Most of that's coming off. This is quite severely corroded. It's literally on every side of the contact has got some corrosion damage to it. And we've also got a big piece of solder where a wire's been soldered to it at some point back in its past, so we want to get rid of that. And that's been affected by the battery acid. Try adding some fresh. There we go. We've got that off. And just a case of keep. If it wasn't quite this bad, we could have perhaps just, like I said, dropped them in some vinegar for a bit of time and just use some Q-tips, but I think this one's a little bit beyond just doing that to it. It's really quite corroded. Flip it over and see. We've got quite a lot of it off already. and hold it that way up, and just turn it. Let's see if I can scrape. There we go. It's actually the majority of it off now. We look there. That's looking quite a bit better than it did. We've got all the muck and rubbish off there, but we are going to have to tin this up, or else that will just tarnish up really quickly. Now it's just bare exposed copper or brass. It's probably brass actually on this, because they used to use brass quite a lot for these spring contacts, and then just plate it with a little bit of chrome. So we will hold that in the vise. So I've got some. What we'll want to do is we'll add some flux to it. And I've got my solder braid here with a load of solder sucked into it, and we're going to try and use this to transfer just a thin layer of solder onto that contact there, and basically just try and replate it a little bit. Just clean my iron off. That's not looking too bad. You don't want it very thick. You really want a very thin layer on here. Try going back in with some of that. Actually, that's not looking too bad. Let me get hold of that with some tweezers, because it'll be hot. As you can see, that's looking a fair bit better. Bear in mind, like I said, we're just going to use this as the middle contact now. We will use the one we salvaged from the middle, which is in much better condition, to replace that actually on the board. So what I will do, we're going to have to do a little bit of clean up work on there. That side doesn't look too bad. We've got lots of burnt flux and burnt battery electrolyte and all sorts on there now, so we'll clean that up. In fact, I'll do the same thing. I'll use my vise just to hold it, because it just makes life a bit easier. So we don't want to tighten it too tight and risk cracking the PCB, but we'll put that in there like that. Let's get a Q-tip. I wonder where that little wire brush I've got is. Ah, there, that should work really nicely. Now where's my IPA? There's my IPA. We'll give that a blast like that. And we'll go in with the brush. And all the brush is doing is it's basically a bronze wire brush, and all we're doing is just helping to lift that muck and rubbish round there. And we can go in with a Q-tip and clean that off. It's looking better already. It's still not perfect, but it is looking quite a lot better. That. Just hold that in there like that. Okay. Okay, unfortunately what it has done is lifted all the all the solder mask off the board there, and it's actually got under a little bit. So what we'll probably end up doing, let's clean that up a bit more, and then we'll use a little bit of conformal coating just to make that look a little bit better. It's actually gone all the way from there, around that pad, all the way down there, and that's all basically where the battery acid is started to eat away at the copper trace. See if we can get that a little bit cleaner, and then we will look at cleaning it. Like I said, we'll look at putting some conformal coating on it just to stop it happening again. This would probably work a bit better. Basically, this is the same thing, only a little bit smaller. It's a little bit more controllable. Oh, that's really, really bad. Let's just make sure we've still got some copper there. What we might have to do is actually just put a bodge wire on. We'll see. Let's see how good the continuity is. We go between there, and it's fine. But it's so corroded, it's actually turned the copper completely black around there. And I don't think that's going to come off. Give it another little quick clean. This is the only problem, you know, battery damage can be a right pain to actually fix. There we go. Get as much of this off as we can. Fortunately, it's just localised that one connection there, which is the negative connection for the battery holder. There we go. That's looking a little bit better than it did. Still not perfect, but like I said, it's probably as good as we can get it. There's my conformal coating. I need a little tiny little brush to apply it with, like this one. And what we're going to do is we're just going to paint in just along there, and just these bits where it's really bad with a little bit of conformal coating, just to hopefully protect it in the future. Like I said, it should have a green solder mask like that on it all the way over, but because of the corrosion it's actually lost its solder mask all around there. Get a little bit of this on the brush. This stuff does go a long way, you don't need very much of it. I can just touch in where it's been damaged there. And there we go, that's looking a little bit more as it would have done originally. There we go. Okay, there we go. That's looking better. And what we need to do is blast that with a little bit of ultraviolet light. which will cure the conformal coating. And then we can put the two contacts that we took off back on, and that should be alright then, and then hopefully we can put this radio back together and it can go back to its owner. Okay, that should be about it. It doesn't take long, it only takes 20 seconds or so, perhaps 30 seconds maximum, with the UV light to cure that. There we go. And that looks a little bit better than it did. As I said, we will take the contact that we re-tinned, which is not the best, but it should work, especially for, like I said, if he's going to just use normal batteries with this thing, then it won't be a problem at all. There we go, that's gone back in place. And then the better of the contacts there we will put as the battery contact. This is the negative battery contact. That goes in there like that. We can just hold that, use the thing to hold it while we solder it. There we go. And solder that back in place. There we are. There we go. Oops. Don't worry, it was just the UV torch hitting the floor. And there we are. So basically we've got good contact, contact, and the repaired contact in the middle, which will be used for if you was ever to use rechargeable batteries with this. In fact, before it goes back together, what I have just noticed is we've got that bit of corrosion. This is the DC jack plug there, and we also have, we've got some corrosion on the back of that as well. So while I'm here, I've got this little wire brush. Let's just have a, in fact, what I'm tempted, we can clean it up. I might just see if I can put a bit of solder between that contact there and the middle bit, because it's just like a pushed over, reamed over rivet type affair for the contact, which is not the best, especially not when it's got a load of corrosion around it. So we can actually make a good physical soldered connection there. It should mean that you can actually use an external DC supply to run this radio, a little 6-volt DC supply. It's either going to be 6 volt or like 7.2 volts or something like that. That's looking better already, because the corrosion's obviously got in there and it won't be making as good a contact as it should. So again, we'll get some flux. I'll add a little bit of flux to that, because this just helps the solder to flow. We'll see if we can solder that. There we go, lovely. basically we know we've got a good connection between the centerpiece there and the actual connection at the back there, because that wasn't a good connection before with just being a push fit connection. There you go. That will be a lot better now. You do have to do that quick, or else you do melt melt the back of the thing. So like I say, it's get off and on when you're doing something like that, and you should be fine. Right, I will but I won't bore you with me putting all this back together. We will come back as soon as I've reassembled all this, and we can see whether the radio is actually going to work. So back in a sec. Right, okay, as you can see, I've basically got the whole radio reassembled. I've got the strap back on it. I've got the aerial for it here. Now the aerial isn't in the best of conditions, but I did manage to straighten the end of it out a little bit, so at least it does actually retract, but the little end bit off there is missing, so we may want to look at a new aerial, but it's functional, it will work. I suppose the moment of truth is let's see if we get any life out of this. We'll put the aerial on, and the other thing I will point out is I don't really know what I'm doing operating this radio. I'm not a radio amateur in any way, shape or form, and this thing is like super complicated. But let's see if we can actually get it to play. Most important thing is the repair that we've done in the battery contact there going to make a difference. So take the battery, it snaps into place. Now can you see, hopefully you can see this, the power button is actually on the top of the radio here, so we'll power it up.
To a world of increasing inequity and ecological unsustainability.
There we go.
And instead we need an economy that's oriented towards meeting
So we've got long wave, that's radio 4 playing.
Values and qualities and limits. So we need a society
Let's
that
see if we
goes
can
beyond.
Having to close. The possibility we can get RTE Radio 1 from Ireland. It's currently just basically scanning on the long wave. We're now onto medium wave. I'm not sure. Like I say, I really don't know what I'm doing with actually programming this radio. But the fault that it came to me for was the fact it was dead. There was no audio from it, and that was due to those leaky capacitors. Now we've sorted that out. We've got something coming through there. There we go. So it really needs a radio amateur to be able to use this radio to fully, know what they're doing. It's got like squelch controls just to bring in radio stations in, and you need someone more into radios than I am to fully operate this. But as we can see, it is definitely functioning. It just needs someone that actually knows what they're doing with the radio to really know what they're doing with it. But and that's not me, because like I say, I really don't 100% know what I'm. See if we can get radio 4 back on. All we're doing is stepping through all the frequencies here. But it does seem to be working. There we go.
Rich countries, and Australia would be considered to be a rich country. We have about 80% of homeowners who are really concerned about security, about able to keep their houses.
Well, I'm pleased with that. I'm happy with that.
Whatever. We have over 100,000 people who are homeless. We have.
I will not mess with it anymore. What I'm going to do, let's switch that off. But what I will do now is I've got to go and pop over to Andy's, so I'll take this back to Andy and I'll ask him to give it back to its owner and let the owner actually have a full play with it and make sure that they're happy that it's working as it should work, because like I said, I am not that familiar with actually how these ham radios or these proper communication receiver type radios like this fully work. It's all digital. You program it. It's a bit beyond me, to be honest. I'm quite impressed I actually made it actually pick up a radio station, because I really don't know what I'm doing when it comes to actually operating one of these sets. So it can go back to its owner. The owner can then play about with it and make sure that everything's fully happy with it. If not, it can come back to me and we can have a little bit more investigation on it. But so far, the repair work that I've done seems to be a success. We've got the amplifier section working. We've recapped the main board because all the capacitors were bad on that, and we've repaired the corrosion damage in the battery tray. So that's basically it. So like I said, I will give this back to Andy. He can give it back to his friend. His friend can have a proper good test of it, and we will take it from there. So I'll leave this video here. Like I said, this might be the last video. If there's something still wrong with this, you might see this radio back. So I will say, hope you enjoyed this little series on trying to fix something that I am not really 100% familiar with. And someone did say to me, would I have a look at another one for them? Let's see what the result. Let's this go back to its owner and see what they say. These are not nice to work on. It's not something I can say I've really enjoyed messing with. I'd much rather be playing with a computer or a valve radio, to be honest, than something like this. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. I hope you enjoyed this little update on the project. So I'll say thanks for watching and goodbye.